Hello, my name is John Faubion, and I'm the person that wrote Friend Me, which is a Christian suspense novel about a psychotic internet killer. I was asked to give some of my background for this interview. I'll just say that in 1974, my wife Janet and our two girls became missionaries to South Vietnam. We'd planned it for a long time. I'd been there in the Air Force in 1966. And as a new Christian, for the first time, I was confronted with what real idolatry looked like. Back in 1966, I promised the Lord that if He wanted us to, I'd be willing for us to go to Vietnam as missionaries, and that's where we wound up. We stayed there until 1975, which is when the war ended and we were forced to leave the country. From there we went to Guam, then later on to Taiwan, the Republic of China. And in 1988, we were making preparations to go to Beijing, mainland China, and begin a missionary work there. That's when a difficult time came into our family because my wife Janet, at only 44 years old, passed away with a brain aneurysm. Now that was a very tough time for our family. I still had 3 girls at home, the youngest of whom was 11 years old, and I sought the Lord about getting me another wife. Someone who'd love me, someone that I could love, and someone who'd be willing to be a mother to my youngest daughter, and on top of that be willing to move to China in about a year. That's a lot to ask, but God graciously provided me a wonderful woman, and my wife Beth and I have been married 23 years now at the time I make this interview. So I thank God for every bit of that. So with a 6-week-old baby in 1991, we went to Beijing and we began our ministry there. And we stayed with the Chinese ministry, both in Beijing and in Hong Kong, working across the border until 1999 when we came back to the United States. I began a new phase of our life at that time because I took a job as a software developer for a large corporation here in Indianapolis. I had some background in computers. I'd helped the mission board out some with that, and now we were doing it professionally. I stayed with that job for about 8 years. And then I found a job with another corporation where I had an opportunity to advance myself a little bit and began supporting our point of sale system on about 2,000 cash registers. During this period of time, and I've been there 6 years, during this period of time, my knowledge of the tech world grew, my background in programming increased, and I remember back in 2010, a bunch of us were sitting around in a design meeting one time, and one of the other application engineers said that all the great ideas had already been done. And I thought, the image of God, as He has stamped it upon man, is a creative image. And I don't think that we're ever going to run out of good ideas. But I didn't have a good idea for something new that hadn't been done. And I began to think about that, and it was rolling around in my mind all afternoon until I watched one of the guys do something on Facebook. And I thought, now there's a social media platform that's just gone like wildfire. And people are friending each other all the time and being friended by people all the time. And this whole business, this idea of friend me has become an invitation. I thought, people really want to have friends, but one of the things we fear, especially online, is exposing ourselves too much to a friend, revealing too much of ourselves, revealing too much of what's inside our hearts. What if you could design, I thought, a virtual friend, not a real person, but one who would functionally be just like a real person to you, someone who'd remember your birthday, someone who would encourage you, knew what was important to you, would give you reminders about things that you had to do, and just be there all the time. Wouldn't that be cool? I thought that would be a thing that people would go for, because then they would have a friend whose only existence would be when they were interacting with you, and they would never betray a confidence. You could tell them anything, and they'd still love you, still encourage you, supposedly, because they're not real, right? But I thought the idea was a good one, so I took it home to my wife and I asked Beth about it, and she said, "Don't you dare do that." I thought, well, why? Because I really thought it was a good idea. And she said, "Do you not see the abuse that people would put a thing like that to? Men would be creating girlfriends, married men. Women would be creating boyfriends. And here's some weirdness," she said. What about someone who's lost a child or a son or a daughter, and maybe in a car accident at 16 years old, and maybe it's been 5 or 10 years. They recreate that son or daughter, and there's that child back again, 16 forever, always sending emails and interacting with them every day. That's weird. And as we began to discuss it, it got even weirder. She said, "You've always wanted to write a book. Instead of writing the software, why don't you write a book? Write a story about it. I think people would like it." So that's what we did. And that's where the book Friend Me came from. That was the genesis of the idea. And I think it's a book that you'll enjoy. It's a real good warning to us today in the way we manage our social media. You see, I would never have a virtual friend. How many Facebook friends do you have that you've never met? You've never seen them in person. You've never heard their voices. Do you know if they're real? I bet you don't. I know for sure that there are virtual people running around on the internet and interacting with people pretending to be real and fooling many. Police are using this actually to catch internet predators. So that's where the idea for Friend Me came from, and I pray that God will use it to be a blessing in your life and to encourage you in this matter of being faithfulness in your marriage and focusing on what's real and what's really important in life.